Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining this edition of Wiz's CISO series. I'm Adi, head of CISO strategy at Wiz, and I will be moderating today's session. Today, we'll be having a multi-panel discussion, and we'll also leave about 5 minutes for Q&A, so make sure to put your chat throughout. And with that, I'm really excited to be joined by a great expert panel who will be sharing their personal experience and perspectives rather than trying to summarize the many, many reasons why they're the perfect speakers for today's topic. I'll ask each of you to please introduce yourself in your own words. Let's start with John, please.
Hi, good afternoon. We are past 12 o'clock. Afternoon all. I'm John Keegan. I head up digital security for the Department of Workers' Pensions. I run a team that helps develop security controls to help us secure our cloud environment, do risk assessments, manage vulnerabilities, and deliver an end-to-end ecosystem really to help us secure the department's services.
Roy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Roy. I'm working in Fireblocks, part of the team responsible for all the cloud infrastructure security multi-cloud. And that's it.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, whatever the case may be. My name is Karel Kohout. I lead AppSec and CloudSec in Accenture, so working with our clients all across the globe, looking after securing cloud and the workloads running in cloud.
Amazing. Thank you all for your introductions, and thank you again for joining us today. So let's get started with a few questions to start the discussion. Well, our topic is really about managing strategies for risk. So when it comes to managing your cloud risk, I'd love to hear and map out a few of your challenges that your team faces and what strategies are you using to address these challenges. Roy, maybe let's start with you.
Sure. So in terms of cloud strategies and challenges, one of our main focus and main struggles was that identifying multi-cloud environments and assessing the issue between multi-cloud environment when it's starting from one single object and jumping to others. And when you realize that you have one issue in place and then it's delivering to other clouds and combining everything together in one single system using Wiz, that was a huge challenges before Wiz. We use a lot of manual operation and open source tool. And with the Wiz, we can see all of those immediately. So the focus is multi-cloud environment, get a good visibility on what's going on in your environment with a single click. And this is what we are doing. So this is for this one. Other one, guys?
Sure, maybe if I'll add. So I see working with our clients a couple of challenges. One is, as Roy said, visibility. So with tools like this, you can understand what is happening from security perspective in your environment. The other challenge is, this is great, understanding security posture, but how do you then take it and translate that to risk? So okay, so we understand the posture, but where is the biggest risk? Where do we need to focus time and energy? As well as the other challenge, I would say, is now that we know all of that, how do we best leverage the limited time of engineering capacity to address those risks? And we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that today. I would say that none of these challenges that I've just mentioned is the biggest one. I think it's the end-to-end journey that really leads to, I would say, good security posture and management of risks.
Thank you. John, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Sure, just building really on that. So probably the single thing really is getting that end-to-end visibility, and that's where tools like Wiz really help, is that you can see what's there, and being able to do that at an organization or master subscription sort of level with the providers gives you that, so you know that you've captured everything. The second thing is really creating the environment for the engineering team so that you're reducing friction So everyone wants to make their systems secure, and quite difficult is if you're bolted on security after you've done a thing. So if you can build it into the process and you can make it so the easiest thing to do is do it in the secure way, you're taking out that friction for the engineering team. So we've done a lot of things to secure by default and to build checks into the CI/CD pipelines, which then prevent things going live in the first place that have got misconfigurations or exploits. And things like Wiz then help you have that view on the top, so you can make sure that you've not missed anything. And then things like the toxic combinations, if you maybe can't fix a vulnerability for a period of time because of other remediation work, what does that mean from a defense in depth point of view? And are you exposed to that particular vulnerability because of other configurations? So that visibility, or from a NIST cybersecurity framework point of view, that identify thing really is probably the big challenge and the thing that keeps us on our toes.
Thank you all. What I'm hearing from you across the board is one, visibility as sort of the first starting point as a baseline for that end-to-end transformation or end-to-end cloud strategy. But John, you were discussing also enabling the wider team, whether it's developers or others. And one of the key strategies that we find that help you enable that is really around prioritization. Because when you get too much that is not prioritized, it's very difficult to enable the full team. So out of curiosity, based on that, how do you actually prioritize so that you could really help to accelerate cloud adoption?
Sure. I think one of the things historically with security groups, and it is the same within DWP, is that we historically try and do too much in the center. You try and police and manage that and prioritize. And the problem that we got with, or one of the challenges with cloud, is that things are moving at such a pace, and the technology moves at such a pace, and the agile sprints move at such a pace. It's really difficult to do things at the center, to do things effectively, because you can't really prioritize across something that's changing that much. And things like Wiz is really good in that it allows more of a federated approach, that you can empower the engineers to understand where the vulnerabilities, where the misconfiguration, where the issues, the combinations are within that. So one, leverage the engineering teams to actually help them prioritize where the most risk areas are, and let them understand the situational context of their stuff. And also, we also do things at the center on top of that, so that we can be encouraging where we do see the risky areas. So I think it's a mix of doing things at the center, but also enabling the teams and empowering the teams to take ownership for their own code, their own environments, their own priority side of things. So actually leverage the best of both worlds.
Great.
Please go ahead, please.
Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, so I'll take it to a few directions. Okay, first of all, in our end, we want to have, first of all, good visibility and monitoring for issues and findings, right? You want to make sure you have the good visibility and monitoring. You want to know the alerts. You want to get them from few directions, right? You want to know what's going on in your environment. The second thing is triage. You want to triage them, right? So if you have a sophisticated 0-day and you are not exposing to the internet, so first of all, you are in relaxed state, right? So the severity is going a little bit lower. And then the other direction that we are taking, we want to have approach for defense in depth. Repeating items should be revoked and remediate automatically. We don't want them, right? So if it's repeating one, prevent them before they occur, right? So put controls to revoke them. Security group, you just talked to security group. You just talk about provisioning of unwanted items on our approved items. So you want to revoke them. So I believe in the approach that repeating items should always be auto-remediated, because misconfiguration vulnerabilities are never ending. So you want to remediate them, right? So this is our approach. And what we're doing also is we are taking advantage of Wiz, and we're taking each findings and taking the project. So we are fixing that, but not just closing that. We're implementing new controls and features, and we are improving our posture, our self-learning, and the best for the company is security. So we're taking each one as seriously, not just closing and findings, and tomorrow it will repeat, right? So this is what we are elaborating.
Thank you. Carol, I'm actually interested, based also on what Roy said and what John said, you have such a wide perspective looking at many customers and many environments, also many strategies. Out of the many customers that you've spoken to, I'd love to see, do you have any conclusions of sort of what has made the biggest improvements in reducing cloud risk? We talked around visibility. We've also talked around democratization, federated environments. Roy and John, all of you have discussed different strategies. Raquel, you have the widest perspective. I would love to hear from you what you've seen makes that biggest difference.
Thank you, Ade. I think we actually heard it from John and from Roy. How I would summarize that, and the conversation that we have with clients over and over again, is that while tools like this are really, really good, it is about a change management in the company, the processes. And I really like when John talked about what I call engineering experience. You can have great processes, you can have great tools, but if you throw too much, forgive the term, at the engineers, they will get overwhelmed. They will try to find ways how not to do it, and you will be in the situation that Roy indicated, basically playing a little bit of a catch-up with what was introduced today. So to turn it around, I think the key themes are: don't underestimate the overall change. Look at the processes, embed this within a processes. Don't do something unnatural just because you want to push in security. I really like the federation point of view, because we all know that security is a skill that there's not enough people on the market, and we can never really put there a central team to police everything. But as John said, one of the strategies that really works well is enable the teams, allow them to own their code, their infrastructure, including security. But there is a very important point, and again, tools like this can really help, and that is that experience. If we just show let's say, a lot of findings, then it won't work. It's about the triage that Roy talked about, the prioritization. I really like the insights point, where you can take the information about, is this exploitable? Is there an active campaign in the market, and really help them to understand, well, this is really thing that you need to focus on in this sprint, and this one, well, maybe you can plan it in your next sprint. So I wouldn't say that there is a silver bullet, but it is all these teams actually playing together in a concert, then magic happens.
Thank you for that. While I agree there's no silver bullet, I would love to hear a perspective. If there was one thing that you would recommend one of the attendees to take away in terms of what can make the biggest impact, what could it be? What would you, off the bat, without thinking too much, what would you say that recommendation would be? John, I feel like you have one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've touched on it a little bit already, which is, empowering teams, the engineers, the product leads, with visibility of their environments, with the context. Certainly in my organization, for years, vulnerability was an email with a spreadsheet with a bunch of things which got lost quite often in backlogs. Really actually getting those to a point that you've got things going into Jira or ServiceNow queues. So there are tasks that actually go into backlogs that can be done, giving that visibility. And it all comes back to empowering the teams with the right information so they understand the context. Now, most people do want to do secure systems, like I said that once before, but the why and the how sometimes is lost. So the more that you can actually feed to people as to, this is the thing that needs to be fixed, this is why you need to fix it, and this is how you need to fix it. And some of that you could automate, some of that you can generate merge requests, they could push into their codes. So that whole enabling plays into that as well. So I'd really encourage that security shouldn't be a central function on its own. It needs to be an enabling function. So that secure by design or secure by default culture gets embedded across the teams.
Thank you. Oi, I was wondering, you've talked about different techniques and strategies of reducing risk. I'd be interested to hear also how and what metrics do you use to measure impact?
So related to techniques, we use a lot of techniques in order to get good visibility, and we have a lot of automation, a lot of alerts, and a lot of rules. But what we are doing is we're taking those as a project, and the biggest impact that we are doing and we are learning every day, especially from Wiz, is that there is a lot of things that you can prevent before they occur, right? So, and there's a lot of techniques and a lot of tools that you can do it. So one of the examples is my college has already mentioned, I really support in lower level environment and provide to the team the ability to work on their own aim, but I also support the least privileges. And when I see issues on the lower level environment, so one of the things that we are doing is we implementing policies and guardrails to prevent that. And I think the advantage of this is because of Wiz and the good visibility that we have, we can implement security controls and guardrails to prevent it even in the low level environment, right? Because you want to have the teams to be able to work. You want to use least privilege approach, but you want to monitor that, and you want to have a baseline that even in the low level environment, you have a good security posture. So in the other end, in one hand, we are providing them the flexibility and the permission, but in the other end, we are putting security measures and enforcing a security misconfiguration and problems. And I think the combination of those, it's really nice. And I also support to provide all the details on any issue, on any matter, to the developers, to the QA team, and everyone. You need to give good visibility on each findings, how it created, what was the reason that for these findings. And when you have that way, you have a good collaboration with the team, right? Because you're helping them to mitigate the problems. And this is a big impact, and this is what we are doing.
Carol, if I take this question one step further, we talked about metrics, and if we go further more on the executive level, and you work a lot with executives and think about also reducing risk and presenting that reduction, whether to the board or to senior management, what metrics would you usually look at and what would you recommend?
Right. I think, as Roy said, I would say there are different metrics for different audiences, right? So when you talk with the board, and I'll use an example of one of our clients where what they have asked us was, can we quantify the risk in monetary value and present that to the accountable C-suite members and tell them, there is an X million of dollars worth of risk exposure. Are you comfortable with that or not? It's not easy to do that. This requires accurate information about assets in CMDB and so on. But I would say I really like communicating towards the executives in financial terms. Because if I come to them with even well-articulated technical risks, saying there is a 0-day or there is this type of a vulnerability, SQL injection, for example, they will probably have a hard time understanding. But if I tell them there is a 10 million, for example, worth of risk in this particular state, they will understand it better and they can take an informed decision. It is perfectly fine if they, as a business owner, say, we are fine with the risk for a period of time, or they will say, oh no, this is above our appetite, we have to do something about it, and we have to invest maybe a little bit in that. So to your question, Adi, I think really quantifying the risk worked really well. Again, not easy. The other metrics are still around risk, but more in technical sense, and how severe the impact is on a scale of low to critical on that business. Is it something that will stop the business from functioning? Again, is it something that the business can afford?
Thank you for that. I'd be curious as well, before we end, we must ask one AI questions because we have to, right? There's no webinar without one question on AI, so I must. But out of curiosity, I would be very curious to see if one of you uses or leverages AI and automation across your workflows. You've all have discussed the fact that it's not just technology, but the workflow around it. Please tell me a bit of your sort of tricks around using AI, and has it been able to help you reduce risk? Roy?
Yes.
Coming on.
Yeah,
I'll
go,
let
go,
you go first, Roy. I'll come in after.
go ahead, John. I will add more.
All I was going to say, and building really on previous conversation, so we have got very much a controls-based approach. We use the CIS controls to understand where we've got vulnerabilities across that, and a CMDB, understanding your assets across that. And probably for a decade or so, I think most people have used machine learning to go and do that and look for patterns and look for areas. And I think AI, machine learning, particularly with a lot of the capability that's now being built into COTS-based products, gives you a prompt, starts to actually say that actually this looks a little bit more risky than these other things across that. And Wiz is brilliant at sort of doing that with the toxic combination side of things. But I don't think we're at the point where the AI will do a thing for you or for an engineer or for the analyst completely. More of a prompt as to you might want to think about losing these things. And I think it's been talked about a little bit already. Policy is code. If you can put the preventative controls into your pipeline, so you're actually not having those things going live with those vulnerabilities or configurations, then you don't necessarily need to have the same hunting or detection, which again is where AI can come in. So for me, it's certainly a lot of putting those controls so you're locking things down. So if the bad guys are out there using AI to probe and find ways through, you bolted the doors already. And I think we're going to have to get better and better at that, as well as to preventing things in the first place, but also checking to make sure, so that you can really be sure that if someone is trying to probe from the side, they aren't going to actually find a way through. And I guess the last bit of that would be, and defense in depth is really important. That whole shift left to, can you protect at further edge layer so that people aren't getting close to the raw data or the code that could be susceptible.
Thank you. Roy, you had some additions?
So for AI, first of all, luckily it's monitored with Wiz as well, so we are lucky. But at the other end, we started with adopting AI approaches back in the days, even like a few years ago. And we are using AI with a zero trust approach, that everything should be private. So we already have dedicated private AI environments, and everything should be private. And we are really focusing on how our data is kept and how our data is transferring and who have access there, right? Everyone want to use AI, everyone want to elaborate that. We see a lot of benefits, but there is a lot of risk with AI, right? So first of all, I think everything should be private when you can support that initiative. Second thing, you have to have good monitoring and visibility on what's going on in the environment, because with AI, there is a huge misconfiguration, especially in the cloud and especially in the dedicated tenants. So we are supporting that, and with Wiz, we have a very good visibility for the AI needs.
Thank you
And
for
if
that.
I can,
Please.
if I can add, we're of course leveraging AI, Gen AI, agentic AI. It can be a great augment, as John said, helping to understand the data, helping. We talked about the experience for the engineers. It can, in natural language, conversationally, help engineers to understand why there is a particular issue, and help them also pre-generate code or a script to address that. Of course, has to be sent checked by the engineer. So there's many areas to apply AI and Gen AI. And just to echo what Roy say, there are also risks with AI, and then it's a great tool, but that it should be part of the same framework, and it should be checked for security, as Roy mentioned.
Perfect. Well, before we end with my last question, I wanted to incorporate one of our attendees' questions. So I'll pose it for you. So in order to quantify risk, were you also leveraging threat modeling or only relying on data from Wiz, like our issues?
So in our case, I will answer for this one. First of all, threat modeling is really important, right? Threat modeling should come on every service and every feature, every new request, right? So what we are doing, of course, we are doing that, but we are looking at the cloud assets and the combination between them, and then we are starting assessing the threat modeling. So we see how everything is combined together, even with multi-cloud, and then we're deep dive to each area: data security, encryption, roles, list privileges, and so on and so on. So with we are taking the big picture and starting collaborating all the items together, and then we are mapping a threat modeling. So this is what we are doing.
Thank you, John. Did you want to add?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thank you. I guess a couple of bits. So we absolutely do, as part of our risk assessment process, do threat modeling from a theoretical point of view. You know, have we got the controls? What are the layers of defense in depth across that? We also do it from the other side of things in looking at threat intelligence. So if this particular exploit being exploited, what would that look like? What are our detect capabilities? Have we got some things that we could protect against a specific exploit at different sort of layers, whether it be at sort of the web application firewall layers through to protection XDR stuff that would run on a host or container side of things. So I think it is really important to do that, and it's also really important to test it. So we do quite a bit where we will do our internal offensive testing and also check the defensive controls. So I think it's great to do the theoretical, but it's also really important to practically test that out and see how good the controls are.
And I would add to that, threat modeling can help in the journey that John talked about at the beginning, getting to prevention rather than detection and remediation. Why I say that is that with threat modeling, you can tell the engineers, these are the controls that you need to implement, not come to them after and say, well, what you've implemented is not secure, right? So it also helps with the culture change. So threat modeling is very important, and absolutely we do that for the engagements in combination with Wiz. In ideal case, I think we should use Wiz to confirm, yes, everything is fine, no security findings, but I think that's the sound of the future.
Thank you. Well, I'd love to end with the sound of the future, actually. And with that, if there is one trend that you anticipate will make an impact on cloud risk and I'd love to see if you're preparing for it already. What would you say is that one trend?
From my point of view, I already talked about that in the beginning. I think that the more we are elaborating defense in depth, auto remediation, repeating items should always be mitigated before they occurred. I think this is the amazing approach, the right approach. You can do it with third-party tools, your own development team, or your own development style. But defense in depth, auto remediation, I think this is the approach, and including SCPs and guardrails. I think this is our focus on.
And I think what I'll add, we already talked about AI, so that is definitely a trend. But I think what I talked about just now, a lot of clients that we work with are already on this journey, are mature, and are started looking at what I described. How do we get to prevent, to Roy's point, even auto remediate, set guardrails so when someone tries to create an insecure configuration, that it gets stopped, but explained why, or even auto-fixed and say, hey, we've created this for you, but these are the things that we changed just to make it more secure. So I think that's really the key trend, getting to prevent rather than detect and remediate.
Thank you all. Well, I wanted to take the opportunity and say thank you. I've taken quite a lot of insights out of this So thank you so much for joining us, for helping everybody understand the process, technology, and forward thinking that you all have taken. So see you next time in our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you so much.